Sit here.
Pick one.
Hi guys, how are you? You beautiful people. Okay, fantastic.
So I wanted to start out with a few questions before turning it over to everybody in the room.
Okay.
First off, BBC America will kill me if I don't say this. The Doctor's Revisited. The Fifth Doctor airs Sunday, May 26th at 7 on BBC America. So what was it like after all these years reminiscing about your time on the show?
Well, really I've spent every year since I left Doctor Who reminiscing about it. It wasn't that difficult, really. In fact, I think probably they had to cut most of it out. Probably the interesting bits, sadly. But no, it wasn't hard at all. I mean, thankfully, the great advantage I have is that I fairly regularly come to conventions where you lot remind me of all the things that happened in the stories, because I've mostly long forgotten. So very often I'll be asked a question, and I'm thinking, and then I'd have to turn it back on you, and you invariably know far more about the story and the episode than I can remember, as I say. So it was fine. I enjoyed it.
One of my readers, Alana in Chicago, asks, I'm going to have to read this one close. What is it like to be the Doctor who had a daughter, who played the Doctor's daughter, who then married the Doctor, and then had the Doctor's daughter?
Yes, it's one of the more confusing stories of our time. And it started out with Georgia going up for a part in Doctor Who, and they were going to offer her this part, and they said to her, look, we'll very happily offer you this part, but if you'll just wait a couple of months, we've got a much better part coming up. And so she rang me up when she got back from the audition and said, what do I do? I said, well, I suppose you have to trust them and wait for the supposedly much better part. And of course, when the much better part came along, it turned out it was a script called The Doctor's Daughter. And I thought, well, it's not actually so much a much better part, it's just a much better title. But she did it nevertheless, and she had a great time, and in the process of which she sort of bumped into David Tennant. And over the following months, they sort of got to know each other slightly better, and then eventually got married and had a child. Actually, it wasn't quite in that order. But for the sake of the younger people among you, I'm going to say it was in that order. And at the ceremony, which was a very nice wedding and an even better party of the year it was, but at the wedding, of course, I had to give the father of the bride speech, in which I kind of recounted this tale, and I realised as I told the tale of Georgia doing a part in Doctor Who, playing the Doctor's daughter, and actually that had a double meaning because she was in fact my daughter, and then of course they got married. It turned out, if I went down to the logical conclusion, was that she'd married me. So I had to kind of stop my speech at that point. I got too insane.
So, who's your favorite Doctor who isn't a son-in-law?
Well put. Somebody asked me this afternoon to compare. Who said, who was your favourite Doctor, you or David Tennant? How can I answer that question? Me, of course. No. It just seemed like a good line to say. No, I grew up with the first two Doctors, William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, and I suppose in the end my favourite was Patrick Troughton, because he had, in a way, the most difficult job. And I know this didn't so much apply over here in America, where a lot of you hadn't seen a Doctor before, Tom Baker. But when the series started, William Hartnell did 3 years, and there was never a thought of anyone else playing the part. And then he decided to leave, partly because of ill health, and they announced a new Doctor, Patrick Troughton. And I remember being very, very trepidatious about someone else playing this part that to me was William Hartnell. And I sat down to watch Patrick Troughton's first episode, and within the space of that first episode, he had won everyone over with his portrayal. So I think he had the most difficult job, and he did it wonderfully well, so he was my Doctor.
question and then I'll turn it over to the floor. So you mentioned your gorgeous daughter. She did an interview with the BBC a few years ago, in which she was interviewed by your grandson.
Oh no, she interviewed my grandson.
So,
You're referring to this, yes?
Yes, I am.
Oh, right, okay, I'll take
Your grandson listed his favorite doctors.
Yes. Well,
in order, do you remember them?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was my daughter's fault, because I think she probably knew the answer to this. And she sat her son down and said, she then put this on YouTube without telling me. She questioned him, and the shot was on him, and she said, okay, so who is your favourite doctor? And Ty, my grandson, replied, David Tennant. This is before she was involved with David Tennant, so there was none of that bias. And then she said, who was your second favourite doctor? And he said, Tom Baker. And then she said, who is your third favourite doctor? And he thought for a bit, then said, I haven't got a third favourite. So he is now officially out of my will. He now claims, I have to say, that he's now revised his list of favourites. David Tennant is still on the top. I've now been promoted to third. Someone called Matt Smith, I think, is somewhere second now.
Right, so we're going to open it up to everybody.
Oh, okay, jolly good. Right, hello.
Hello. I just watched the episode of this movie, The Five Doctors, a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
And my question for you, as somebody who worked on an anniversary episode, what do you think that Moffat and Tennant and Smith and everybody needs to bring to the 50th anniversary episode that they're going to be working on to bring everything up to date and continue on for 50 more years?
Well, I think they're going to, first of all, not really sure how much I'm allowed to say, really.
You don't tell anyone.
Get a huge amount of But I think it's going to address a certain gap in the sort of history of the Doctor in more recent years. I think that's one of the things I'll do. I think it will be pretty spectacular. I think it will have great guest stars. Sadly, I don't think I'm one of them. But I am planning a little something myself. Just for you lot, really, because it was fun. So there will be little additions and bonus things around the 50th anniversary special, but I think it will be terrific. I think it will be not so much old doctors as just very spectacular storyline and a great story, more bangs and explosions, and it's great fun. That's all I can tell you, I'm afraid. Although, of course, I know a lot more.
That's okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan of you, but also this question is actually from my mom.
Okay.
She loves you in all creatures, great and small,
Yeah.
and she was wondering what your favorite part of that show was.
My favourite part of all creatures, well, it wasn't having my arm up a cow. This is extraordinary, you know, it was extraordinary to me because I got the very first episode, and in that very first episode, Christopher Timothy, who played James Herriot, there was a scene with him with his arm up a cow, and I thought, well, that's just ridiculous, vets don't do that. And then we got on location, and I discovered that vets do that all the time. It's virtually all they do. When they go out to examine an animal, might have a sore throat, the arm goes up. I don't know why. They can't think of anything else to do. I don't know. And of course I had to do that. I'm really avoiding the question at the moment until I think of an answer. But I really wasn't looking forward to the time when I had to do this, but of course it came. And I remember reading the script and thinking, oh my lord, they're not really going to make me do that, are they? And the one memory I have of it is standing on this bleak hillside in the Yorkshire Dales with my arm up a cow and thinking, my arm is the only warm part of my body. I suppose my favourite part of that really was playing the scenes with Robert Hardy. It was really because of, we played Siegfried, in case you didn't know, but he loved the way the brothers worked together, and it was because of him really that my part grew. I think I was only meant to be in about 4 episodes of the first season, and in fact I was in all but 1, because he liked the way the brothers worked, and it was just such an adventure playing a scene with Robert Hardy, because he would never do the same thing twice. Quite deliberately, he's just a fantastic actor, and he just works off instinct. And if the scene is going slightly differently, he'll suddenly bark a line at you, or if it's going in a different way, he'll just whisper a line at you. And I had to keep on my toes, so it was a great learning experience.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Stephanie. Saw you a couple of years ago at Chicago TARDIS, and I didn't have the guts to ask a question, but so I got up the courage. I'm sure you hear this question a lot, but I'm an aspiring actress myself, and I was just wondering what kind of advice you have for us kind of people.
Aspiring actresses?
Yes.
Well, I think, first of all, you have to make sure, and I'm sure this doesn't apply to you, but this is a general point, that I meet quite a lot of people who say that they want to be actresses or actors. And first of all, you have to make absolutely sure that that's what you want to do and not just be well known. And that's a very important thing, because there are a lot of people out there, and sometimes it's a giveaway, but I'll meet some and they'll come up to me and they'll go, oh, I want to be an actress stroke model. And I don't know what an actress stroke model is, except it's someone who wants to be famous. So I think you have to be very sure that you enjoy acting for the sake of acting, and not because it may one day make you famous. It may very well one day make you famous, and that's in a way a great advantage and in some way a great hindrance. But as long as you decide this is really what you want to do and you're prepared to do it, whatever work is thrown at you, then that's great. I suppose the advice is to go to drama school, although it has relatively little use, I have to say. It can't teach you to act. I suppose it can give you experience in doing shows and things like that. But my daughter, for example, didn't go to drama school, and she's a terrific actress, and I know many other actors who didn't go to drama school and are fantastic. So it's not necessary. It's not a necessary thing you have to do. I suppose just keep at it. I suppose keep some other string to your bow in case things go horribly wrong and you decide you want to do something else. But you just have to be persistent. You can't give up at the first fence if you fail to just leap over it. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I was just wondering, because you're also a stage actor, what do you like about stage acting versus acting for television and vice versa?
Well, the great thing about stage acting is you kind of get a great run at it. You know, no one is stopping you and saying, oh, let's do that again. And you don't have to do scenes from different angles. You're just doing it for an audience, and you get the audience response. And that response could be laughter, it could be a gasp, or whatever. It could be indifference, actually. But that's what you feed on is the audience reaction. And it's a kind of thrill. It's not. In many ways, it's not ideal unless you're doing a theatre in the round. You generally have to shout your lines because people at the back can't hear. And the director, in my experience, most of the notes you get in the course of rehearsing a play are not try and play this scene with more intensity. It's usually just talk louder. But there's a certain great thing. It's in your control. Everything's in your control on stage. You're not at the behest of whether the cameraman thinks you got it right, or the sound guy got the line right, or the light stayed on at the right time. You are playing a scene with another actor on stage, and it's between you two. That's all. So that's what I'm playing.
Hello.
Hello.
I thought it would be. I have 2 questions. One, what companion that, other than your own, do you feel like the 5th Doctor would have worked really well with? And what adventure do you think that you always wanted to do, or that you've seen doctors after you or even before that you always kind of wish that you had gotten to do with, your doctor?
Okay. I remember being terrified very early on by the 2 of the Cybermen, which I would love to have. I think that's when I first thought I'd like to play the Doctor. Weirdly enough, when I became an actor, I never thought about being the Doctor. But when I was about 13, I definitely did. I think on the companion front, that I think they finally got it right. They were desperately searching all the time. There have been some great companions, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they were all terrible before this particular companion, but I think they were always searching for a way to make companions interesting and sort of attractive in the sense of a character. And I don't think they quite got it right until Rose. And in the end, the answer was simple. You just write a great part for somebody, and of course you have to have the actress who performs it right. But I just think, there's an argument which I've heard, which I think is possible, that in that first series of Doctor Who, the most important character was Rose, not necessarily the Doctor. We were kind of seeing the entire series through the eyes of Rose. And in my time particularly, and much as I love Janet and Mark, they thought, let's make an interesting companion by making Janet someone who really doesn't actually want to be there. And let's make Mark Turner an interesting character by making him want to kill the Doctor. And in the end, it just led to kind of problems. We'd have to lock Mark up in episode 1 and let him out in episode 4, for example. So it was difficult, and I think they knew what they had to do. They wanted to make the companions more interesting. And as I say, there were some great companions. So Jane was a great companion, but I think they really got it bang right on with Rose.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Like most of the people in this room, I followed my sons to a Comic-Con just for you.
That's very kind of you. Very good fatherly things.
Has anybody approached you to do a voiceover on an animation or whatever to round out your Doctor's stories?
No. If there anybody in the room who'd like to ask me, I'd be very happy. I can't say that they have. Obviously, we did the Big Finish things, but they're just audio. Yeah, I've heard about this. They just expand the who have they done? They've done something, haven't they? Has anyone done this?
I think they were rounded out some of the first 2 Doctors'
Right,
adventures, but the animation was kind of sketchy.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah. It's a good idea, actually. It's a very good idea. Yeah. They could animate the Big Finish productions, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Why can't they do with us what they did on Tron with Jeff Bridges? That's what I want to know. How the heck did they do that? Yes, sir.
Your era as the Doctor was in many ways a precursor to the modern series because it was a little darker, a little grittier. You had Tegan's breakdown, you had the death of a companion, things that never happened on Doctor Who before.
Yeah.
And in many ways, the guilt that the Doctor felt after some of that stuff happened. And you arguably had the best episode of the classic series with the Caves of Androzani. I mean, no doubt in my mind, but you also had the best speech of any of the Doctors in the classic series at the end of Part 3, when you explain why you had to save Harry at all costs, the guilt and everything that we'd see in the later series. And if every episode had been as good as the Caves of Androzani, how long would you have stayed as the Doctor?
That's a very good question. Because I had to make my decision actually at the end of season 2, which I wasn't overly pleased with. Probably I would have stayed if every season had been. I mean, everyone's got their own opinion about the new series of Doctor Who as opposed to the classic series, whether they like it or not. But I think there's no doubt that the Case of Androzani script was terrific, and a lot of the new scripts for the new series are terrific as well. And so certainly, had they all been written by Robert Holmes, yes, I think probably would have done Series 4, maybe Series 5. Or indeed even Russell T Davies or Mark Gatiss or Stephen Moffat. I'd still be there. Cheers.
And we were kind of wondering, did he meet you before he met your daughter, or was it the other way around?
And when he met you,
how much did he geek out?
Was that geek out?
Yeah.
Totally geeked out. I'll tell you this story. I have a very good friend who I worked with in the theatre in 1993, I think it was. 92 or 93. And when it was announced that David Tennant was becoming the next Doctor, she rang me up and she said, I can't believe that David Tennant is playing the Doctor. I said, yeah, I think he'll be very good. She said, yeah, but you know it's David Tennant, you know who he is. I said, no, who is he? He said, it's that bloke who came and sat at our table in that pub in 1993. And I said, I remembered this when we were doing a show next door and we were all sitting around this table in this pub. And just everyone who was working on the show. And then this bloke came up and said, oh, do you mind if I join you? And we all went, no, fine. So he sat down, and I don't know, he did say a couple of things. But I remember thinking, he was perfectly nice, but I remember thinking, who is he? It turned out he was David Tennant. And I asked him about it, and he said, yeah, I was thinking, but I had actually worked with him. We were in the same episode of a show called Mrs. Bradley Mysteries. And I knew him before Georgie was ever on the scene, yes. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I am in so much trouble. They have to stay in America. But, you know, he is, and he was, and he is a huge Doctor Who fan. And that's, in a way, what was fantastic, I think, about his Doctor, was he had that real passion. Here is someone who, as a child, desperately wanted to play the Doctor all the way through, and then they came back, and then he became the Doctor. So it's one of the great stories, I think.
Hello again, Peter. I wanted to go back to all creatures. I was going to ask what the most difficult animal you worked with, but I think you already answered that with your story about the cow. So instead, I was wondering if you could tell us about doing Tristan's version of the Mad Conductor.
Well, okay. Two things about that. One is, when we did, believe it or not, this sounds the most extraordinary thing. You know, we were in the Drovers, the pub set, and rather than make fake beer, they just used to give us beer. I don't know what they were thinking of. And of course, you never do things in one take. So you're kind of down in this beer, which is actually warm by this time, and then you're doing a Mad Conductor. And of course, I think they realised every time they did another take, because I was slightly drunker, it got a little better in their minds. So I think we did about 4 takes, by which time I was just... yeah, no, it was great fun. I had no idea what I was doing. I learned a bit of music, and I just was sort of improvising around a sort of vague impression of John Cleese, I think.
Well, whatever it was brilliant. Thanks so much.
Oh, that's not going to work, is it? Do you want to go put it down? That's it. Yay. Excellent.
I wanted to ask, what was your favorite companion to work with?
My favourite companion to work with, this drives Janet Fielding mad, but I kind of like Nissa. Because she was just simple and straightforward and sincere and, you know, did all the right companion-y things. And I kind of thought that worked very well with the Doctor. So probably my favourite would be Nissa, yeah.
Good to know.
Good to know. Hello, she's broken the microphone. Throw her out. It's all true. Hi.
So, I do a lot of acting, and I wanted to know if it was hard to get into acting and what your favorite part about acting was.
Well, it's hard to say whether it was hard to get into acting. I mean, I managed to fail all my exams at school, and so I was not directed towards the various possibilities of university, etc., that my colleagues in class were, and they kind of just were desperately at a loss as to what to do. And I thought, well, it'd be good to apply to drama school, because I was keen on drama, and they were just so relieved that I found something I wanted to do that they were quite supportive. And I got in, albeit by the skin of my teeth, I think 3 days before the term started. And then I suppose when I left drama school, I was fairly lucky. I mean, I've had, by a lot of other actor standards, a very, very fortunate career. Things have come along which have been terrific parts to do. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better part to come along than All Creatures Great and Small. The Tomorrow People I'm not quite so sure about, in case anyone's heard of that. Thankfully, I don't think many of you have. Good. Don't go looking for it. So I've been blessed with great good fortune, so I couldn't recommend my example to anyone else. You know, acting has a lot to do with being in the right place at the right time by luck, and I managed to do that. What I enjoy about acting? What I enjoy about acting is I was very, very shy, oddly enough, when I was growing up, and I really couldn't. I found it very difficult to speak to people, and I discovered that when I was acting, that kind of all fell away. And there's this idea out there that actors, they see a very exhibitionist young child, they see their son being very loud and gregarious, and they go, oh, he's going to be an actor. Usually the opposite is true. It's usually the shy people who become actors, because they're the people who aren't speaking, they're observing. And that's the best training to be an actor that you can have, is just to observe other people.
Thank you.
How much say did you have in your costume choice for the
Well, not a lot, actually. I did come up with the idea of cricket, because I thought that, John he said, I wanted something a bit younger and more dashing, and I thought, well, cricket's kind of eccentric, like the Doctor is, and it's sporty, so why don't we have the costume based around his cricketing outfit? And he went away, gave it to the designer, and they came up with that outfit. I think had I been the producer, I would have stuck with the idea that the Doctor simply goes into the wardrobe and picks certain things off the peg, and so it's a more thrown together outfit than it was. Mine was a bit designer. And that was only a precursor to Colin Baker's that was kind of mine on speed. But I probably would have chosen a bit more. I was perfectly happy with it. It was very comfortable, and the celery was thrown at me at the last minute. But nevertheless, generally speaking, I was happy with it, but I didn't have much of a say in it, apart from the general theme.
I just had another comment. I want to say that my favorite line that I've heard you deliver ever is, I think it's Caves of Androzoni, where he's actually discussing why he wears the celery, and it's all about this big explanation of poison gas and how it turns purple, and then they say, well, then what do you do? And you say, well, I eat the celery. And I think that's just like such a genius line, and I love the way that you deliver it.
You know, the truth is that when John Nathan Turner came up with the idea of celery, he came to me one morning and said, I've got a great idea for the eccentric thing you should have in a costume, a stick of celery. And I said, why? And he said, I have no idea. So I said, well, as long as you explain it before I leave, that's fine. And so we went through the entire 3 series, and then as we started the Caves of Androzani, I realised that no one had explained the celery. So I went to a script editor and said, you've got to explain this. So this is the explanation they came up with, which I thought worked rather well. But it was right at the last minute they put that in.
Thanks.
You've been acting for many years, right?
Yes.
Far
too many years, actually. You're saying I should stop? Yeah, I think you're probably right. Right, that's it. I'll give it up.
Do you have any regrets about your acting career whatsoever?
Like actually going into it, you mean? Yes. Do I have any regrets?
Tomorrow, people.
Well, Probably the Tomorrow People, yes, actually, because I was doing rather nicely in repertory theatre, and this part came up of the Tomorrow People, of a space cowboy called Elmer, who wore spandex swimming trunks and a blonde curly wig. And for some bizarre reason, I thought it was a good idea to do it. And so I did it, and thinking that obviously once I'd done television, it would then all suddenly blossom for me, and then I was out of work for about a year and a half. Unsurprisingly, actually there was talk at one point of doing more of the Tomorrow People, because it was quite a funny episode. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Tomorrow People, have you? It was a sort of ITV's answer to Doctor Who. It was more of a children's series, and normally it was very, very serious. This particular story was a kind of comedy episode, and everyone was very keen that we should come back into it because the cast loved the fact that we were being funny, and then it went out on television and the kids hated it. So thankfully it never saw the light of day again, and All Creatures came along, and then I was laughing. So I think that's probably I mean, everything is like life, isn't it? I mean, you can have your regrets in some way, but everything that happens to you that's bad actually contributes to who you are. So you can't really, even how terrible they are. I mean, obviously, if it's truly appalling, you don't want it to happen to anyone. But everything, most of the things that happen in your life, good or bad, are character building, I think. Hopefully.
Thank you. And can I give you something?
What are you giving me? Is this my reward? Oh, wow, that's rather cool. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Right, everyone asks me a question now has to give me a gift. Okay, hello. No, you don't really have to give me a gift.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm fine.
Good. If you hadn't gotten the role of the Doctor...
I'm a bit short of cash, actually, but if you... No, I'm sorry, carry on, please.
If you could have had any other role in the series, what would it be? Here.
Well, I think the best other part, I suppose, would have been the Master. I don't know if I would be good there. I wouldn't mind having a crack at the Master now. How about that? The Fifth Doctor comes back as the Master. Uh-oh.
How fun was it playing the Doctor?
How fun was it? It was a great deal of fun. You know what it's like? It's like, you know, I watch my son sometimes playing with their friends in the park, and they're just sort of making up stories, and they're firing imaginary guns at each other, and they're being chased by invisible aliens. And I thought, you know, that's exactly what playing Doctor Who is like. It's like playing in the street when you're a child. And those magical days when you just spend all days just playing. But I was getting to do it for real in the studio with costume and with real aliens. Well, not real aliens, of course, but you know what I mean. So in a way, that was the fun part. That was the great fun part of it. Sort of everything you dreamed of doing when you were a child. Thank you.
We've got to go back in the original position. All right. Okay. First off, a little bit of bad news. That there's actually an American pilot for a remake of the Tomorrow People. So you're.
Are they mad?
Okay. So, hey, DVDs happen. Sorry. But okay. My question is, you did star in what is, in my opinion, the best story in the history of Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. But you also got to work with probably the most controversial companion in the entire history of the show as well, Adric. So, and let's be honest here, how torn up were you when they killed him off?
Well, you know, I liked Matthew, but I thought it was quite a good idea to kill him off. Because, you know, there is no, you know, normally there's no danger in Doctor Who of the companion actually dying. And John Nathan Taylor came up with this idea. Somebody had to leave, and it was going to be Adric, I guess. He was an interesting person to act with, Matthew. He was sort of, in a way, intense. In that sense, it going like that a lot. He would do rather strange things. He once told Richard Todd, a very famous British film star, how to act, which I thought was tremendously ambitious of him. But it wasn't so much that. It was just simply that there were too many companions in the TARDIS, and I guess that Matthew drew the short straw. But I thought, given all that, it was quite a good idea, quite a good way to go. No one's going to forget it. No one's ever forgotten the way Adric left the series. It's scarred many people. I'll tell you a funny story. You know, when my children were, I suppose they were that time, they were probably about sort of, 7 and 9, and Rose Tyler was going to leave the series, and I think there was a rumour out that she was going to die. And indeed, I think the title of the episode was How I Died, or something like that. Am I right in saying that?
Her monologue at the beginning.
So when my children found out about this, they were so cut up. They were sobbing and crying, and they were saying, "I'm sure they're not going to kill Rose off." They go, "No, I've heard they're going to kill Rose off." So I thought I would send an email to Russell T Davies. And I'm saying to him, "Look, I'm sorry to bother you, Russell, but my children are really so upset about the possibility that Rose would die. Could you please just tell me if she does or not? Because if she does, then I really think I shouldn't let them watch the episode." And he sent me an email back saying, "You killed Adric, what do you care?" So that, I guess, is karma. Hi.
It's wonderful to see you again. You've been to Chicago multiple times, and what keeps you coming back?
You keep asking me. It's great. I keep thinking, well, they won't want me to come back there. And then they say, no, what got you to come back?
No,
I might even be back in end of November. I don't know. Possibly. Keep me away. It's a great town. It's a great town.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Hi. My question is, between New Who and Old Who, which of your favorite villains have appeared?
Ooh. Well, I mean, my favourite villain, oddly, and I know this is not a favourite choice, are the Cybermen. I just always loved the Cybermen, and I liked the Cybermen during my time as well. I thought it was a very good version, if you like, of the Cybermen. We had the Ice. I haven't seen it actually. Can we have the Ice Warriors?
They've come back next.
Okay. So I like it when they bring back the favourites, and they revamp them sometimes. I'm not always so sure about the revamping, but generally they do a fantastic job. But between the two, which have come back more, do you mean, in the old series or the new series?
No, like just which ones are your favorite? Like
Oh, the Cybermen, of course I love the Daleks, the Ice Warriors, who else? The Master, of course, came back. I think they'd be my favourites.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Going back to what you were saying with Patrick Troughton, how he had to change, and keeping in mind what you just also mentioned about how the producers do have some say about personalities. And of course, every doctor tries to put their own stamp on the character. Did you feel an extra sense of pressure because you had followed Tom Baker, who had been there for so long and was so legendary? And also, very quickly, what do you think of the qualities that make a good doctor? And not just the actors, but what are the qualities that make the doctor the doctor?
Well, I've asked this a lot, of course, in America, because you have a slightly different perception of it over here than we had in Britain. Mostly, people didn't know of the other doctors before Tom Baker. So as far as you were concerned, Tom Baker had done it for many years, and then this interloper came in, who was much too young and had been in been sailing around with his arm up a cow for many years. But in Britain, Tom was simply the fourth Doctor. You know, I was far more, if you like, intimidated or worried about following William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, and maybe even John Pertwee, than I was about Tom. I know that Tom had done it for a long time, and therefore people were young enough, they wouldn't have known a Doctor before, but my focus was on all the Doctors. And I did feel that pressure because, you know, I was the first Doctor who played the part having grown up watching it. So to me it was a huge iconic part in my mind, and suddenly I was being asked to play it. So it's very difficult. You're not really given any help either. I mean, the strange irony is you're cast because you're different, and yet you have to be similar in a strange kind of way.
By the way, I should thank PBS for bringing Doctor Who to America, along with All Creatures and Monty Python and Fawlty Towers. Because otherwise it never would have been.
This is like an opinion question. Like from the beginning of the Doctor Who series, the Doctor's always been a man or a male character, and the companion's always been a female. Until recently, it's like Amelia Pond and Clara, and so like, do you think that any of like the companions could become the Doctor? Like there could be a female Doctor and a male companion?
Well, I don't think the companions themselves would become the Doctor. I don't.
Well, no, but like how Donna, she became the Doctor when the Doctor.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, I see what you mean. But as far as a straight regeneration into another Doctor, I think it would always be a different character. I think a new actor. Now, whether that actor would one day be a woman, I don't know. I think it would present certain problems in that you're actually changing gender as opposed to just your form. I mean, you know, there's always that bit where you go, he looks at you and says, oh, look at his hands, there we go, aren't they? Look at his feet. And then, what is the female Doctor going to be looking at? Oh, hang on, what's happened to So it presents certain problems. I don't know, it may happen. I kind of think, I rather like the idea that there is a strong companion, a female companion, and that seems to work very well. And as I say, they're almost of equal importance, and the companion is of great importance to the Doctor, always has been. James, thank you.
Hello again.
Hello again.
So you've mentioned your favorite bad guys. What are your least favorite bad guys?
My least favourite bad guys were the lumps of polystyrene we had in Time Flight. I think. We just ran out. I don't know what happened with that story. I think it was quite a good story, but we just ran out of money. And we filmed it in Studio 8 at the BBC, which is the smallest studio on what they call a perspective set. And there was this model of Concorde on the back wall, and I thought, are we really meant to believe that this model of Concorde, or indeed the real Concorde, could have landed on what they were saying was Heathrow, which was basically rocks, and actually land successfully in one piece. And the monsters, I seem to remember them. I might be giving them injustice here, but they seem to me to be just lumps of moving polystyrene. Not very good. So they would be my least favourite. I suppose overall, the ones I was least impressed with were the ones that really weren't a threat. You know, they had quite a few monsters that were sort of great lumbering masses of rubber. And yet they were meant to be, people would be terrified of them and would be chased down and killed by them. Well, in fact, you could just turn around and walk away. Perfectly safely. So you had soldiers who, of course, they always have to die. And they would give, rather than walk away, they'd sort of go, ah! I always thought that was slightly unconvincing. And of course, the poor actor couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't move. They couldn't see where they were going for a start.
I get it.
Thank you. Everyone's having a lot of trouble with that microphone.
Okay. Hi. Right. Hi. First off, thank you for your work in Doctor Who. Also, thank you for Campion and The Last Detective, which you like. So, in addition to New Who, like for the past decade, there's been just sort of an explosion of British science fiction and fantasy. There's been so many new shows like Inhuman and Life on Mars. Of course, Hollywood seems to have caught on with sort of British science fiction or fantasy with roots in the UK, like the Lord of the Rings movies and Harry Potter. And it seems like so many people involved in the writing and directing and producing, they were, a lot of them are self-confessed Doctor Who fans and were children during your era. So how does it feel witnessing that? I mean, do you take a little pride in it? Is it kind of exciting to sort of see that you've inspired or led astray all these years?
Well, I think, led astray. I think Doctor Who has a great deal to do with it. I mean, there are many, many very famous people, in those who haven't actually come out as Whovians in Britain, and I think it was a great source of creative inspiration, if you like, to young people. Many of whom have gone on to write very interesting things. And I think what we do quite well, and you pointed out sort of being human and things like that, is that we are quite good at taking an idea and subverting it in a way that maybe Hollywood doesn't think of, and we're quite good at that, which I am kind of very impressed with. Because people, obviously people like, Russell T. Davies didn't start off like that, but they can write pure science fiction, and they can write this rather bizarre, anarchic look at science fiction, or vampires or zombies or whatever. So yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that I liken it now to the lunatic running the asylum on Doctor Who, certainly, because we are responsible for people like Russell T. Davies and Stephen Moffat. And here they are running the show, so great.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I watched Doctor Who when I was, young, and on VHS of all things. And I remember you.
I don't remember what VHS is.
I remember watching Tom Baker.
Yeah.
I remember watching Tom Baker really, but
yeah.
No offense. But
are you asking who I am?
I thought you were the Riddler at first. No, but today, like in 2005, when they made the reboot and everything, and now, like, I was like, oh, that's fun, and I watched it, started when I was 10, watching the reboot, and now, like, everyone knows it, like, it's such a big thing now, like, it's not just, England, it's, America's becoming a gigantic fan base for Doctor Who, like, what do you feel about that, like?
Well, apart from the faint embarrassment, of course, I'm very aware that a lot of young people I meet now at these conventions in America, for example, who wouldn't know me apart from the fact that they've gone back and watched My Doctor. They come along to meet me, and I don't look quite the same as I did. So I feel slightly bit of embarrassed. I'm terribly sorry, but years have passed, and things happen. But apart from that, it's very nice. It's very nice that there's a new sort of audience out there. And the same people who would come along to conventions 10 years ago and bring their children wouldn't be even vaguely interested. Now the children are interested because there's a new Doctor, and they have gone back. And actually, I'm very impressed because I would have thought they would go back and look at our classic Doctor stories and go, well, these special effects are rubbish. But actually, they're remarkably they make allowances for us, I guess, and you have to. But they seem to enjoy it. They watch it for what it is. Cheers, thank you. Hi, Anne.
I host the Dr. Who Springs in Chicago.
Do you know I know that? Sorry. Yeah,
and we have a lot of discussions, and one of them revolves around generation. We say that Paul McGann has the most inspirational. David Tennant has the most emotional. Who do you think had the best regeneration?
Oh. That's so difficult.
I know.
Is that why you asked it? Is it difficult? Too difficult to answer. What am I talking about? It's just the special effects. I kind of like Christopher Eccleston into David Tennant, actually. I thought that was pretty spectacular. Partly because it wasn't that I didn't like Christopher Eccleston, it was that I didn't quite feel his heart was in it. And I just knew when David arrived on the scene that his heart was in it. So you had a double whammy, kind of. Not only you had the regeneration, but suddenly it seemed to breathe life back into it. Not that I thought, some of Christopher Evans' stories were brilliant, and he was very, very good in it, but I just felt that he lacked a kind of, passion.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi.
I saw you at the Chicago Artists Convention in 2011. I had recently created a Doctor Who club at my college at that point, and I did not have... I recently resigned from being president due to it being my last semester at college,
Right.
but it's being taken over by a very excellent president, Crystal. And I often view Doctor Who as a show that really brings people together. I mean, I could go into a hall on campus and see individuals with bow ties, or Tom Baker scarves, or even if they were eating celery, I'd get a little laugh about it. So I was wondering, what do you think brings people together if they all know something about Doctor Who? And in the spirit that it brings people together, and I know that you've gone to a lot more, let's say, quaint conventions, such as Chicago TARDIS, would you ever be interested in coming to a college event at Columbia College Chicago that would be based around you?
Listen, I think the problem is this, right, is that, first of all, let me just say this. I think that I don't know what it is quite about fandom, but I think it's a wonderful, I do sincerely mean this, it's a wonderful community that you have going here, because it is so inclusive of anybody who is a fan, and there's no kind of, in any other kind of situation you get, well, it's the sporty types, or it's the geeky types. Here you cover absolutely everyone, and everyone is a part of the family, and I'm very struck by that. It doesn't matter what your social position is, or what your level of academia is. If you're a fan of science fiction or Doctor Who, you're included in that great family, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I really do. As to the thing of coming along to college events, especially in America, first of all, there's one little problem with the airfare, and that's usually beyond even small college events, because we have to at least get here. If I just happen to be strolling through the town and you happen to have a college event, then I might go, oh, it'd be nice to pop in. That's a slightly different thing. So.
Nice. How would we get in touch with you?
That's easy to find out. Most people will tell you that. You just have to look on the website. My agent's there, but it's not as easy as. It's a nice idea to just go. Yeah, I'm going to be nice and go along to a nice college thing, but there are always problems involved. Oh look, I spilled my last bit of water. Never mind. Anyway,
thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Hello. So you said you don't really like revamps. But I was just wondering, because obviously a lot of the classic monsters like the Daleks and the Cybermen come back every time. I was wondering if there was a classic villain from your period, like that you didn't really like the Merker or something like that, but you thought that if they brought it into the new series, they could do it a bit better.
I'd like to see an updated, actually, the version of the Pterodactyls. I was quite fond of the Pterodactyls. They never sort of. They weren't that great because they had tiny little flowers. The idea of them taking over the universe seemed a little absurd. However, they did have, I thought, great potential.
Cool. Thank you.
Cheers.
Visually speaking, like when you first see a Dalek, they're not frightening and they're also kind of slow. But what do you think makes them so frightening and makes people fear them?
There's something about the looks. The tragedy of the Daleks is that the guy who actually designed them really got nothing for designing them because he worked for the BBC. And that was a great shame. There's something iconic about that look, whether it's the fact that it was sort of, by legend based on a kind of salt cellar, so people would just look at their table and see the salt cellar and actually see a Dalek. I don't know what it was. But actually, weirdly, they're not as slow as they look, because I remember when I did my Dalek story, I thought it would be a bit of the situation like with a Merker, where you'd have to kind of go, "Whoa." But actually they moved like greased lightning. They raced around that studio. And apart from the little problem of stairs, which has since been solved, of course, I thought they are pretty scary. They just look, for some reason, a strange sort of, well, obviously a sink plunger, but nevertheless, there's something magical about them. I can't really put my finger on what it is, but it works. Thank you.
Hello. Hiya. Well, we heard what your favorite Doctor was. Now, a little question time. Who is your least favorite?
I can't possibly answer that. It's terribly difficult and possibly a possible question to answer. Because someone in this room would tweet it in 5 seconds. Possibly say that. Who knows what you've tweeted already? I'll never find out. I can't make that tweet thing work at all. No, I loved all the Doctors. Each Doctor is his own Doctor, you know. That's the great thing about Doctor Who, is that, you know, I thought when I left that no one would be interested, because obviously I'd left and Colin was the Doctor, and then you realise after a while that I would always be the 5th Doctor. And that's, each of us have our little attributes.
Pretty solid answer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello. So how do you feel like when after you watched the episode that you just made?
When I watched what?
Like when you made the Doctor Who episode, do you
Yeah.
like watching it on like the TV?
Yeah.
And how do you feel?
You always feel, whether it's Doctor Who or anything else that you've done, you never feel happy. I've never ever sat down and watched something I've done and gone, oh, it's really good in that. Normally you go, oh, why did I do it like that? So it's not a pleasurable experience. You have to wait at least 10 years. Funnily enough, I can watch episodes of All Creatures now, and I've kind of forgotten ever doing it, so I can watch it, I'm that old. I can watch it and go, oh, that's quite fun. But it takes that long.
We've got time for one more question.
One more? Sorry. Can't we do them very quickly? All right, I'm going to do, everyone who's standing up and do them very quickly. All right, here we go.
Okay, right. I feel this question is going to split the fan base. Okay. But are you excited to finally learn your name?
Am I finally learning my name? You really think that's going to happen? Okay, that's fine. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm very excited. Never happened. Never happened. Okay. Yes, next question. Quick. Oh, yeah, hit him in the face. I'll get him.
What do you like better, the new Doctor Who or the older Doctor Who?
What? I couldn't hear what the question was. Yes?
Do you like the new Doctor Who better or the older Doctor Who?
Oh, I think both have their qualities, you know, I really do. I'm very envious of the special effects in the new series, deeply envious, and I'm very envious of a lot of the writing of the new series as well. I think perhaps I would like them to slow it down a bit, that's all I'd say. I think I like the two-parters better than the single-parters. It just gives more time for the programme to develop. But I love both. Yes?
All right, one's a quick question, and the other one is a message. Quick question. With so many British actors portraying Americans, what are the odds of the Doctor being portrayed by an American? Is it possible?
I never believed that when John Nathan Taylor came up with the idea of an American companion, that the Americans would like it.
Right.
Especially if she wasn't American.
She wasn't.
A small point, no, she wasn't. I think what you like about, what I thought was you like the series because of its Britishness. Yes. And therefore, to have an American it would kind of defeat that purpose. So I don't think it will happen.
All right, and my quick message is it possible you can tell Stephen Moffat if the Doctor can make a cameo on Downton Abbey? Just throw it in there.
Yes.
I really enjoy you as an actor, and I think you're really great. And I want to say, do you think, because like a lot of sci-fi has franchises, do you think it would be good, because one time there was a Doctor Who movie release, like in Britain, would you like to see a Doctor Who
movie? Well, if I did see a Doctor Who movie, it would have to be whoever was the incumbent Doctor at the time. I'm not sure how well it would do. You know, a lot of it would depend on how well it was perceived and how well they thought it would do in America. America really is the only thing that matters in terms of movies, especially with the kind of money you'd have to spend on a Doctor Who movie. You couldn't just rely on it being successful in Britain because it would never pay for itself.
Right.
So,
and with the 50th anniversary coming, do you think that they could do like a retrospect or have you go over some of your favorite episodes, you know, and do like a...
well, they're doing that in this Doctor Revisited, aren't they?
Right.
And I'm doing
May 26th. May 26th, BBC.
Oh, May 26th, apparently, yeah. If you want to come over to Britain, I'm doing something at the British Film Institute on May the 4th, where I will be appearing there, and they'll be showing, I think, Caves of Androzani. I'll be talking about that. If you want to book your air flights now, go ahead. Yeah, so there's a lot of things we're involved in this year. Some little extra bits for the 50th anniversary I hope will come to fruition, so look out for those. And thank you very much indeed.